door shut, and now the frostbite's creeping in. 'Cause I've been stone cold since you left me here, so come home. Why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. Got me stone cold. No Wizard of Oz can undo what I've done. Completely out of luck this time. I'm stuck in reverse. I gotta get away now, but I can't seem to take the lead. Oh baby, how could I know there was no second chances? Like dominoes, my life got really scattered. Still, I find myself hoping that you'll find your way back to me. 'Cause I've been stone cold since you left me here, so come home. Why won't you reappear? Things that I said came out totally wrong. Can't speak of the truth when it's tainted. I fell into a big black hole. It got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. You got me stone cold. You got me stone cold.
Hello and welcome to the Badass University All-Stars Playday 2 of the second week of the group stages. Now, Jerry, yesterday we had an incredible set of matches. Coconut Cracked were able to beat out Froggers. We also saw, I believe it was Team Triton beating the Imperium of Mandem, followed by, let me double check my stats, just to make sure that I am 100% right. The Princesses beating out the Randy Ravens. Yes, that's exactly what happened. I've just double checked now. It's been a while since we've worked together, hasn't it?
It has, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, it's always a fun time on the desk with you, McGreedy. So, yeah, I guess let's get cracking on. You are right. It was an interesting day yesterday. For me personally, I got to see a lot of the teams that we have on today facing each other last week, but there are a couple of newer ones that I didn't see last week. First off, though, we have Sniper Monkeys and Lockdown Ludens. And boy, these were a fun couple of teams to cast last time, so I'm looking forward to them especially. But yeah, yesterday as well, the Princesses. I was not surprised to see them win after the performance that Ideal was putting up last time. That was such a highlight game for me in Playday 1 on Chalet, and I just hope we get the same level of entertainment and ferocity that he was bringing out on that map from any of the teams today, because then I'll have had a good night.
Yeah, I think we all will have had. Honestly, I'm going to look at this schedule right now, and I'm going to say what I think about it. Now, obviously, you've seen these teams before, so you have that little bit more kind of intimacy with the teams at least. I mean, the Lockdown Ludens, that's obviously a name that I do recognize, but all the rest are brand new to me. Now, I know I've seen the rosters before, but I can't exactly remember who's on what team. I know there are names scattered across the other teams I know, but why don't you just break down some of these teams for me, if you can?
Well, we had a big old shuffle between the seasons, so this is not just new rosters, but basically a new format, new everything from Season 1 to Season 2. And Lockdown Ludens is one of the few teams that kind of retained a name. A lot of the others are new, and I love the names, by the way. I think this has been mentioned on every cast so far, but they're excellent names. I really love them.
They're great, yeah.
And yeah, it's a fun little kind of flavor to the whole thing when you've got this league made up of everyone that's from different universities and just sort of competing for that brilliant big prize pool. The first place, I believe, £750, which is fantastic. So, yeah, Lockdown Ludens did impress last week, and the rest, I don't believe I didn't get to see Chip Hunters or the Minutemen, so that's going to be a new experience for me.
Yeah. Now, Sniper Monkeys, I mean, I've looked at this team, and I've seen the kind of players on there. I remember that it's stacked. I remember it's a really big roster to have on the board. It isn't obviously competing with the teams such at the very top, like the Imperium of Mandem and Team Triton, but that's not that big of an issue, because they're still, they're still in a position where they can start bringing it back. They can start putting some rounds on the board. We've only seen 1 week of Playday and 1 game coming out from them. Well, when you look towards Chimp Hunters, though, and Lockdown Ludens game, this is the 3rd and 4th place spot coming out. So these two teams, they have a lot to fight for, as they want to get these points on the board and qualify for those playoffs.
Yeah, they've gotten off to a good start, certainly. I wouldn't put the Sniper Monkeys down, personally. Like you said, their roster is stacked, and I think they just got off to a bad start last week. So yeah. I wouldn't... looking at the table at this point in time is probably just a bit too early to judge. But as you mentioned, that roster, or some of the rosters today, we're going to be having a look at the ones that are coming up right now. Sniper Monkeys and Lockdown Ludens. So on the left-hand side of your screen, we can see we've got Tiki, Quick Jab, Nom the Nom, Sturksy, and the Hyde, that fantastically stacked roster that we did mention. Sturksy, probably one of the most vocal in the sort of competitive uni scene at the moment, and for good reason. He can definitely walk the walk as well as talk the talk, so he's one to look out for. On the other side, we've got Proctor, Benji, Jobu, Gady, and KK, a familiar set of faces from last season that continuing to prove their worth after a good start last week.
Yeah, now, Lockdown Ludens, I look at that roster, and the first thing I'm going to point out, Jobu and Gady. Those were the players that would clutch everything out when it came to that last season. Like you said, they retained the same team that they had before. Now, this is the entire roster that won out round 1 of Season 1, so they've got that high pedigree, they've got the ability to compete quite a bit as they do look to keep it moving, and giving this success in Season 2, and just saying, okay, well, now that new teams are coming in, well, we're not going to lose our stride, we're going to keep going. On the side of Sniper Monkeys, though, you've got Titchy, Sturksy, The Hyde, Nom the Nom. These are also returning players from Season 1, with the addition of Quick Jab, who has come in, and I believe he's going to take that entry frag role. He knows what needs to be done. He fits in very, very comfortably to a roster. So Sniper Monkeys, like you said, they're very stacked as well. So looking at how this team is going to come through, going up against Lockdown Ludens, this is arguably one of the games that I am very, very excited for, because look at it, right? You see the rosters, you see the names. As we bring it back to the casters, you can see my excitement as I'm thinking about what's going on in this game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just having a look back at last week's results, and yeah, Sniper Monkeys, they would have been disappointed with that 7-3 loss against Triton, right? Triton, I mean, it's a relatively sort of reassembled roster, but they still have that name Triton, which was clearly sort of one of the more dominant sides from last season as well, and there's some remnants of that left over. But yeah, 7-3 on Cafe probably wasn't the best start to their season. On the other side of things, Lockdown Ludens, they just about edged out a victory on Oregon against Randy Ravens. That was a nutty game, 8-6. But yeah, I don't know. There's not too much we can read into that unless we see a Cafe, then it could be anything. Besides Cafe coming up, there won't be any sort of solid prediction. If Cafe does come up, then you've got to worry about Sniper Monkeys. But I have a feeling that, well, they picked it last week, so they're obviously confident on it, but maybe they've taken a knock to their confidence after that.
Well, I'm gonna have to give you that little hint and give you that little insight. Well, your prediction, well, it's gonna stay in that little mark where you can't really call it looking at it. Because of the auto-ban system coming in, Kaf Dostoevsky is gonna be banned for, I believe it was Sniper Monkeys. Or if you play the game, if you play that map, it gets banned for the next 2 weeks to ensure we don't have that repetition. We get to see new maps. And speaking of maps, Jerry, we're going to see exactly where we're going to be heading to tonight. Like I said, Kaf, that's going to be taken off the board immediately. With it is going to be Oregon. So, well, it's kind of making you think, well, Jerry, where can we go? We've got the two, well, default maps, if you will, taken off the board immediately.
Well, I mean, I suppose you could say Clubhouse is one of those remaining ones. Consulate and Chalet going. Oh, that's a shame. I really wanted to see another Chalet game, but maybe we'll get a second one later tonight instead. So the remaining two bans, will we see Clubhouse come off the board? That trifecta gone? Yes, we will. Coastline also banned out, so that remains to be Villa is our showdown location. And this is too early to make any sort of predictions on this. I'm so glad that you reminded me of the auto-ban system. I completely forgot about it, and it's just such a great way of kind of keeping a league sort of vitalized and energetic and sort of keeping teams on their toes. And the entertainment value alone, I think, is worth it, but it also just means that teams have to be a bit more prepared than they maybe usually would, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah, having that dynamic range to be able to deal with a lot of these maps on the board, well, that just makes life a lot more comfortable, and it makes things a lot more enjoyable for us and for the viewers, because, Jerry, how many times have you gone into a cast and been told you're going to Oregon?
Oh, man.
And
I mean,
what is the reaction?
There are,
you know,
I've had whole
good.
days of Oregon before.
Exactly.
Let me tell you, I mean, you probably know as well, but it's not fun. So, good to see Villa, to be fair. Villa's somewhere in the middle of the pack when it comes to sort of occurrences in this sort of grassroots scene, and yeah, it's a great map. Lots of vertical destruction, plenty of creativity to be had on the defensive side. There's no sort of singular stock hold for any of these sites. You can be a bit inventive with how you do it, and the same goes for the attacks. There are multiple approaches to every single site, and it's a great map. It's honestly one that I think will probably live long on in the map pool in general because of that.
Yeah. I think that ties in very nicely to my actual, to my next point. Because you look at this and you say, okay, Lockdown Ludens, back all the way in Season 1, in our very first Playday, which was me and you, if you do recall, well, we saw Lockdown Ludens having a very, very comfortable Clubhouse. Every time we saw them on Clubhouse, they would dominate, and I think it's because of that. They had those default, very bare-bones strategies, and they were able to run around, get some kills on the board, and essentially play ranked to what a lot of the viewers kind of described it as. But it worked for them. So Sniper Monkey's taking that map away, well, that makes a lot of sense to me. Then you're seeing Lockdown Ludens, they're taking away Coastline, saying, okay, we don't want to go into Coastline because it's small. It doesn't give us that maneuverability, that freedom of movement that we play off so well. Villa, it does offer us that, but like you said, there's going to have to be a lot more thought going into it. You can't just put in a default strat because there are strats built to work around it. We know there isn't a set way to approach Villa like there is on Clubhouse, I think is the best way to describe what I'm thinking.
Yeah, certainly not. And looking at the map bans sort of slightly more closely as well, of all the 3 maps that made it through to that kind of final round of bans, Club, Coast, and Villa, Villa's probably the least likely to be seen. Obviously, Coast is its own beast, but I wouldn't be surprised if teams at this stage of the season, and obviously we have a small kind of sample size to work with so far, but I wouldn't be surprised if teams at this stage of the season are happy to bring out Coast just because of the kind of fast and loose nature of it, and the fact that most teams right now have only just been assembled and are kind of trying to find their feet. If they fancy themselves as gunners, then that's certainly a good option. But yeah, Villa, much more stable, almost the polar opposite of Coastline in terms of sort of safety, especially now that Theme Park is out of the pool, because that was probably the most sort of hunker-downable, defender-sided map in the pool. Yeah, I think that it's going to be a very sort of well-thought-out Villa, potentially. I don't want to jinx it, of course.
Right.
Could be completely the opposite, and there's a good case for that because these are new teams. But I don't know if they'll have, like, the surging confidence yet to play too far outside the box.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, because like you said, you're seeing teams coming in, they might fancy themselves as gunners, but going into a league, going up against a pre-made team of Lockdown Ludens, well, okay, that might not be a great idea. And well, you look at Sniper Monkeys, they're just rebranded Chexland, in my opinion. You've got a lot of those faces returning. Well, I'm not really wrong, am I? You're seeing a couple of players switched around, moved on to different teams, like Jono, or Mally, sorry. He's moved around over towards Randy Ravens, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you're looking at this and you're saying, right, this is a team that are very comfortable. We've played them on Clubhouse before. Coastline as well. We played them on Coastline and Clubhouse. Let's not really take them there. If we could take these maps off, that's fine. Villa is a good place to go. But while we do have a little bit of time before we do get into that game, I want to ask you the important question, Jerry.
Go on.
Do you think Theme Park was taken out too early?
Ooh. I am definitely in that camp. I think it was taken out too early, just because it was the most recent edition, and that just feels a bit wrong. There are other sort of candidates. I wasn't one that was shouting for Consulate to go. I feel like there's a lot of depth to it, and there's a reason it's been in the pool for so long. But Coastline perhaps feeling a little stale, in my opinion, just in the way what it brings to the table. Even possibly Oregon, like it just kind of a lot of the same stuff happens there. Theme Park felt underappreciated, in my opinion. I would have loved personally to see an expansion to either 9 maps and then just rework the whole banning system, but that would have been a massive competitive overhaul affecting pretty much everywhere. I would have loved to see Chalet isn't. I would have loved to see either Skyscraper or the new border make its way in, but I can understand the tentativeness with the new border. People need to kind of experiment with it a little bit, but we know it at its core does work. So yeah, I was surprised by the exit of Theme Park, as you probably were, but yeah, I would rather it have stayed and maybe Coastline gone.
I mean, I'm going to say calf here, and I'll tell you why. Because I look at this and I say, right, Consulate and Coastline, they need to stay. Because they are those frag maps. They do have that bit of depth. You know, if you want to put that extra strat work in, it really does pay off. And there is a very high risk, high reward in doing so. You keep those maps in. You have those fragger-oriented maps, realistically. And you have the opportunity to put those maps there. And think about it. If you take those maps out, well, another map is going to take that position. I think Clubhouse will find a lot more aggressive playthrough as we do look at getting into our game. Maybe if we see Border coming in, maybe switch out that Coastline. Who knows? But our game is going to be starting very, very soon. We are going to be heading to Villa. We are going to be seeing Sniper Monkeys trying to recover from a shaky week 1. Whereas Lockdown Ludens, they're going to want to consolidate this very strong start that they've had, move forward, dominate the game like they did in the last season. Jerry, you don't have any predictions. Do you want to hear mine?
I do. I really want to hear yours. I think I have a prediction about your prediction. I think that you're going to go with Sniper Monkeys.
I do have a soft spot for Sturksy. I'll be honest.
Absolutely.
Who doesn't at this point, though? Let's be honest. But we are going to be heading right into that game. And the bans, well, that's just going to tell us a lot about this game. Now, I'm going to make another prediction here, Jerry. I'm going to say a Thatcher and a Ace. Thatcher, Ace, or Hibana, and then take Cade off the board as a defender.
Cade and Thatcher, I feel, are comfortable. Yeah. I would not be surprised to see a Mirror ban here. This is probably one of Mirror's best maps. And if she does go through, she will define the way the game is played. So, a lot of the time, these first attacking bans are interesting. It's a kind of a chicken game. Who's going to ban Thatcher? And Ludens, well, they've thrown down the gauntlet. They banned Jackal first. An interesting move. Certainly a powerful operator on Villa. It's a very sprawling map. That basement area essentially functioning as Cluedo secret tunnels that sort of jump you from corner to corner of the map for free as a defender. So Jackal often one of the best tools to lock those down, and lock down Ludens are going to lock him out. Smunkies take out Thatcher, so they succumb to that chicken game. Now we've got the defensive bans. Like you said, Kaid I think is probably a fair one. Mirror would be sort of sensible too. I wouldn't be surprised to see both of them. But Wamai is going to knock us out of the park with his presence here.
Okay, well, we are talking about these off meta bans realistically, because like we said, we see the Thatcher, we see one of those Heart Breaches, then a Cade or Wamai. Maybe a Mirror can come out. We'll find out very, very shortly. Yeah, that Mirror's being taken away, and that makes a lot of sense, because the inclusion of a Mirror just leads to a lot of kill boxes that can be set up, crossfires, that attackers, you cannot allow just the defenders to do this, in my opinion. But the Jackal ban, before I throw it back to you, that's what I want to talk about. Ludens banned Jackal before the Thatcher. I think that's very important to talk about, because that says how Ludens want to play this. If they're taking away Jackal, well, there's a key reason for it. Not the smokes, not the gun, it's that Inox tracker, because they are going to be able to roam a lot more. And when you look at this lineup, as an Aviator Games lineup, well, that just screams roam game, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely does. The drone denial alone would enable that roam game, but couple that with the intel that the Valkyrie cameras are going to give you, and this is a defensive unit that can be very flexible with the way they use the map. Plenty of C4s as well, 3, and then Benji opting to take those impact nades, which may be potentially useful for impact tricking on this study wall, should the opportunity come, but, you know, you're already stacked in the C4 department.
Yeah.
I think that this is you mentioned the Jackal ban, and that is really going to make sure that that roam game can come through to full force. And I'm not surprised that Ludens have done this. They did it last week against Randy Ravens on Oregon. I didn't mark down their defensive ban, but they banned Jackal, and it allowed it was interesting, that one, because it was still sort of a 3-3 split, both halves. So it wasn't defender-sided. It didn't have the massive effect that maybe a hard breach ban would have on this map. Worth noting, all hard breaches have made it through the ban phase.
Yeah, well, I actually want to have a look at this right now. What we're seeing from Lockdown Ludens over on that Aviator Games, they're preparing for a master side take, and they're preparing for C4s down below and a player-in trophy to call for those C4s as soon as it happens. Well, that's not going to happen, because you have Mr. Truck, Quick Jab, playing for 20R UK. He's going to be getting that sledgehammer, opening things up. Now, Gady is going to start feeling a lot of pressure here. In doing so, they're going to call back the Romans. They're not going to call them back to sight. As that Gemini will be taken down, Gady says, right, they're not pushing just yet, but they are going to commit a lot of utility very, very soon. Hyde is going to start moving through, has that line of sight, they're able to cut off these Romas, which is pretty damn powerful position to have right now. The elbow's being pushed out. The Romas of the Ludens will want to start looking ready to play down below. Bit tentative to pull back, but they will be in a position to capitalize. And Benji's going to do it as well. Finding one kill, Nomdadom. Gonna find a team kill, not what you want to see at the start. The diffuser is now down in study. Now, think about it. If a mirror was left on the board, well, this would just be round over. The Hyde is able to find an answer, though. Picking off Benji, the frag grenade will go to get that meat jammer. And Proctor will find the kill themselves, playing down below with that Mozzie C4. Now, Nomdadom and Tichi, well, they've got a huge mountain to climb.
C4s took a while to come into effect, but so did the guns, I suppose, from Lockdown Losers. They just surged to victory in that final flurry. It was a situation where Malusi C4 would have been the perfect setup there, and you were just watching her thinking, oh, if only she had them. But she had to toss a couple of impact nades their way instead. But it didn't matter. He was able to swing the door anyway. Great little pickup there from, I believe it was it Gady? It was Benji on that swing. Didn't get to see the nature of that team kill, but clearly just swarming for those opportunities, knowing that all the bodies were flooding through study. And, well, even with the team kill, they managed to seal out the round there. So a one-dimensional attack completely throttled.
Yeah, I think the way that we saw Sniper Monkeys trying to approach it there is like you said. Well, they're just trying to get in with that one-dimensional attack. We saw the Lockdown Luden setup. It had a huge emphasis on this roam game over towards that master side. Well, if you are the Sniper Monkeys, you might say, well, okay, well, if you see that with the drones, let's just go for this push, let's go for this take, let's catch them off guard. Well, Gady and Benji definitely stopped that. They stymied it, the rumors came down below, they had the C4s, and then at that point they said, well, they haven't got out of study, so it's just a case of hold the angles, use your utility. They're not going for anything else. They're not roam clearing or anything. As soon as that C4 came from propped up below, it was late enough to the point where Sniper Monkeys didn't have time to get a player going for the roam clear. They didn't have time to really get, well, justifiably, I think is the way I'm going to phrase it, commit a player to go downstairs, deal with that player, and try and help out, because at that point, you're giving your team an even bigger disadvantage, a wider margin for the Ludens to capitalize upon,